I was showing someone a video. I like to show people, like past things. And we
Uh-huh.
were looking at the sing off competition, the Emerald Coast
Oh
sing
my
off. Remember,
God.
like 12 years
That's where we
ago.
met.
Yeah, that was because I auditioned and you were like, what, like the audition.
Yeah.
And then,
Oh
the
yeah, I was one
night
of the
that,
judges. I
yeah,
was
you
yeah.
were one of the judges. And so, like, that was our first interaction. And I was showing, my friend Anthony O'Shea, Anthony Shepard,
Hmm.
his road to, he won that competition.
Right.
And your
Oh
comments
yeah,
at
yeah.
the
Oh my
end,
God, he was so
the
good
first
too.
one, he
Yeah,
won it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I heard you and I was like, there's Johnny C. Like you were, hosting and stuff. So I was all like, yeah, I was like, we all have come a long way.
Hey, it's your dose of Johnny C and Ace 50 Media Production. I am Johnny C. And for Black History Month, we're talking about the less talked about issues and hardships facing the Black community. And so, with me, my first guest is Allison Morris. She is, if I bring up my notes, where are you at? Okay. So Allison is the founder of the We Reign Sickle Cell Corporation, which we're going to be talking about sickle cell, quality control manager, Real Women Radio Foundation, and also the co-founder and owner of Limitless Entertainment. You were nice enough to bring me on as for one of your seminars, and I talked about public speaking, and I believe I did very poorly in talking about public speaking
Yeah.
and doing it. But Allison, thank you so much for being on this podcast. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for inviting me on. And it's a long time coming. I like that we're in this format. So I appreciate it so
Oh
much.
yeah, yeah, it's great. And so we're going to talk about issues that are facing the Black community. And granted, no hardships about the Black community can be talked about enough. Like we can concede to that. But there are issues that are made less prevalent. We talk about redlining, we talk about systemic racism, we talk about disproportionate incarceration, we talk about poverty. But one thing that you pointed out to me in one of our encounters was how little sickle cell anemia is talked about, and you have a daughter with sickle cell anemia,
I
and
do.
so I would like for you to talk about it, what it is, the hardships that it brings to you as a mother, to your daughter. How old is your daughter now?
She is 8 years old,
So for
going
8 years
on
old,
eight.
she's 8 years old and she's been in and out of the hospital because of this,
Correct.
and
Over
and
30 times.
and it's a genetic disorder that, again, disproportionately, because it's a recessive gene, it affects more people in the Black community than of anybody else. And so, tell me about it.
Yes. So growing up, the only thing I really heard or knew about sickle cell disease was that if you have the trait, that if just make sure that you don't, get married or have a child with someone else that had the trait as well. And so that was the end of the conversation. It's all like, well, if you have the trait, don't get with someone that has the trait as well. I was never told that I had the trait until her newborn screening when they called to
Oh,
tell me that she had the disease. So you can see like the shock and the like confusion as to what happened and what went wrong. And so that goes along with the things that we don't talk about. In and out of the Black community, as far as is getting testing, genetic counseling, all these things, our health history, knowing where we come from. A lot of those things are removed, and so there's the number one thing is that starting 400 years ago with slavery, we don't know our history. Everyone is not from Africa, and Africa is a continent. And so we have a really hard time tracing back our ancestors. And so what comes with that knowledge, it's not just empowerment, it's not just about our culture. Those are very important, but it's literally our health. And so if we can't go back past 1910, which is when sickle cell disease was discovered, and it was actually brought about, studied by a student that came over, a dental student. I think his name was Noel James. Don't quote me on the name. We don't. Someone will fact check me out there somewhere. But I know Noel is part of his name. But
Yeah.
he was a student. He had it, and he didn't really know. Like they didn't call it that at the time. And he was experiencing pain. He was experiencing. But he was just sick, a sickly person. And so one of his cohorts, or one of his people that he worked with, they took a look at his blood and they saw that the blood was sickling, and they saw that it was changing shape, and they saw that it was different. And so that was like the first discovery of a first molecular disease. So it is genetic, like you said. It is something that is in our genes. And so how it started, it's still debatable. No one really knows where it comes from. We know that it's resistant to malaria. There's a whole bunch of things that are just like, well, why is it resistant to malaria? We don't know. There's not a lot of research that is being done on that end. But I will say that it primarily affects African Americans, and so it's one of those things where I've heard people even say to me, as late as a week ago, saying, "Well, y'all can figure it out." It's one of those things like, y'all got this. I was like,
I'm
did
not
we say
laughing
that
because I
about?
think it's funny. I'm laughing because it's
Yeah.
ridiculous, just how dismissive that is.
Yeah, I've reached out as a nonprofit, organizer, or president of a nonprofit. I reached out to other nonprofits, and blood disorders, and we won't call out specific names, but I was told, like, well, I think they have a sickle cell organization that can help you with this, and I'm like, yes, but we're all in the same class. We're all blood disorders. I think we can be better with numbers. If you have all these resources, because I was referred from my physician to reach out to other organizations for assistance and help identifying who is affected. So it is a rare illness, considered a rare illness. And it is considered an invisible illness because it presents itself differently in everyone. So those things alone will will create a whole host of issues. When you go to the emergency room and you're having a pain crisis, which means that there's oxygen being deprived of your cells, like your red blood cells are literally dying, and there's organ and tissue damage happening, just as you would in a heart attack, but they don't see it the same way. And so
Hmm.
when you say a heart attack, and that's literally what it is classified in the hospital and the emergency department guidelines that is made by the American Health, the National Health Institute
Hmm.
classifies it as an ESI2, which is same level as heart attack. But people, they be like, well, then you're going to be seen immediately. No,
No.
either because they don't know, which is, the ignorance of it all. Be like, well, they should know. You should go to the hospital, and everyone should know how to treat, or the doctors should know. And it never is the case.
And
And mhm.
go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, so with all those things, it is a racial thing because, again, they say, well, it's a Black issue. Guys, y'all work it out.
Right. And in the area that we live in the same area, Northwest Florida. The demographic is, I believe it's not 10% black. And of course, with sickle cell being a rare disease, you're gonna have people in hospitals who it's like, sickle cell, really? Like, here? I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah.
And you talked about sickling of the red blood cells, which carries the oxygen. Because of the sickling, it's harder for those cells to carry the oxygen. So the parts of your body that need the oxygen don't get as much. And so when you say pain crisis, what are some of the symptoms that you've seen when you call it a pain crisis?
Yes. Well, my daughter, unfortunately, she's had like I said, over 30, or so emergency room visits. Not
And she's
all
only
have
8.
been admissions. Yeah. And so we basically around 2, whenever her, adult hemoglobin started growing in, and, this all gets technical, but at the end of the day, she's in pain. And it's not something that I can ignore. It's not something I can, give her some Motrin or some Tylenol and tell her to go lay down.
Right.
And then I have a recording of her. I'll share it with you on later. But because I wanted her teachers, I wanted everyone that is around her to understand what it is that's happening to her. Because she mentally, we're going to talk about mental health later. Mentally, she doesn't want to be sick. So she's like, I don't want to go to the hospital. I don't want to be,
Yeah.
I don't want this to happen. So she will try to fight it, and it comes out, it's inconsolable, inconsolable pain. So wherever the area is, typically with her, is her arms or her legs. And there's, like I said, there's bone and tissue organ damage happening. So every minute counts, but we have to go to Pensacola, which is an hour away from where we
Mm-hmm.
live. And so that is literally our options so that she can get opioids, opioids at 8, morphine, hydrocodone, oxycodone. Those are like administered immediately as soon as we get there. Within an hour, they're by guideline standards supposed to give her these heavy doses of opioids, and it's it pains me to see all of this given to someone so young. And then she has all these massive amounts of Motrin that she's taken on a regular basis. The first 5 years of her life, she had penicillin twice a day
Oh
because
my
of the risk of
gosh.
infection.
Wow.
I mean, their spleen, they have abnormal functioning spleens. So sometimes they have them removed, because they're not functioning properly. And our spleen, and I didn't know this until I had her, we need our spleen. Like, even though it's not really, it doesn't do anything, it helps filter out certain things, and
Right.
it actually helps us. It's a benefit. So when that doesn't work, then you pretty much get sick off of, the common cold or RSV, and people are like, well, why is she sick again? I'm like, well, I mean, 2020, we weren't actually sick. We stayed at home during
Right.
COVID. We
You
stayed
stayed
home.
away
I
from
was scared.
everybody.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not going anywhere. I
Right.
got Instacart, and we bunkered down. But yeah, the pain crisis is, her just screaming in pain, and we're trying to figure out, okay, let me put her in the tub. We're by that point, we got to go to the hospital and let them get her fluids and the proper amount of fluids. I mean, there's a thing called fluid overload, where you can give them acute chest syndrome, and pneumonia can develop from having too much IV fluids, because they're not dehydrated, but you still have to hydrate the cells. So
Mm-hmm.
we learned this through our partner company's Sickle Cell Medical Advocacy educated us about half normal saline and different techniques that we can use to help get those clotted cells and get that crisis under control. So it gets deep, and then it's like, and then it's not, it's like, okay, we can go a month, or we can go 6 months, like we just did the last 6 months without a crisis, and she's fine. But it's still there, once you have that initial emergency situation, it's like, it's PTSD all over again. Every time, you're in the
Right.
hospital, it's all over again.
And eventually, I mean, she's 8 now. Um, I I'd venture to say, are you afraid, because she's having to take opioids in order to like alleviate the pain? Do you believe that are you afraid rather that she could become dependent on them?
That is definitely a concern. It is definitely something that is I see with adolescents, transitioning over to adulthood, with finding a physician, with dealing with doctors. They're labeled drug seekers. They're coming in, and they already know how to manage the pain.
Mm-hmm.
But how do you go to the emergency room and ask them for, two 2 milligrams or 4 milligrams of Dilaudid, which, morphine, and they're
Yeah.
like, hold on, let's do your blood work first. And sometimes the blood work doesn't even show that you're
Right.
sickling. There's not a test that says you're having a pain crisis right now. You're
There,
just experiencing pain.
there's not a test out there for that. Like there's no there's no like oxygen level or anything like that that they could test out or
Those are factors that can be, but the vaso-occlusive event itself, the crisis itself, it's undetectable. Like by lab work, like your labs can look normal, and you know that's the tricky part of it all is like they literally have to start treating the patient and not the disease.
right.
Because I like even this last month when we went to the ER, we were admitted, and the doctor came out and she said, and I hope I'm not doing like a I'm not being mean by doing a reenactment of it, but she was like, well, sickle cell disease does this and sickle cell disease does that. And I was all like, yeah, but my daughter is telling you otherwise. And I
Yeah.
need you to listen to her body. I
Yeah.
need you, and I know, based off of experience, what she's been going through. So definitely, I want to make sure she understands, even at 8, we let's try to feel the pain a little bit. Let's try to work through the pain and not be immediate
And
towards going towards the pain,
and I can
painkillers.
imagine that's got to be a hard thing to tell an 8-year-old.
Yeah,
Like so, like they know that they're hurting and they want to make it better. They want, and they're turning to you as the parent to make it better. And I gotta imagine that's got to be hard for you to tell your daughter, I know it's hurting, but we got to feel it out.
yeah.
Um,
We've gotta try to hydrate. I give her liquid IV. Like anything I'm saying, please, if anyone else is dealing with these things, please seek
this
a
is your experience.
professional.
Yeah, this is your
Yeah,
experience. This is what you do
yeah,
individually.
yeah.
This is not medical advice by any means, but in like you were talking, whatever the medical equivalent of mansplaining is, that's what you experienced.
Right.
And and of course, like as she gets older, and with people, like with having to seek out opioids themselves in order to alleviate the pain from a pain crisis, you know, you run the risk of being labeled a frequent flyer at a hospital.
Mhm.
And then, you and your daughter experience, which time and time again, you experience that dismissive nature that you see all too often.
Yeah, they assume that, she's in pediatrics, that everything we come in there and they come in and they save the day and nothing goes wrong.
Yeah.
Everyone, gives us blankets and I've had to I advocate for other sickle cell patients around the country through this organization as well. And so we're partnered with SCMA. And so we were advocating for a client, a patient in New Mexico, and we had to fight to get a blanket because of the high crime. She was in the waiting area for 17 and a half hours. And about 4 hours in, I said, "Oh, she needs a blanket. Can you please just give her a blanket? She needs to stay warm,
A
because temperature."
blanket? You had to fight for a blanket.
We had to fight for a blanket. I made 7 calls to the emergency department trying to reach someone that can help us, get her treated. We
What?
eventually, like I said, she was in the emergency room 17 and a half hours.
Oh my
It was
gosh.
an 8 hour wait when she got there. I said, no, we can't do that. He told, her fiance said she has sickle cell. They were like, well, tough. They brought the IV fluids out, hours later and all this stuff. I mean, people, we're literally dying. I think that if we stop trying to make it seem like it is something that we can handle as a people, I think that maybe, it might get a little bit better. Like this is a mayday, like this is an emergency. I think everyone needs to worry about each other. We need to take care of each other.
Right.
And so it's not like, ooh, that's so sad for y'all.
Yeah,
Like
and
we
it
need. Mhm.
I mean that's why we're talking about this, and that
Mhm.
like that's why you pointed it out to me. Um, and you were talking about the mental health aspect of it. And um, aside from your daughter, you've worked with other people who have experienced sickle cell, and so the mental health aspect, like how's it affected not only your daughter but like some of the other people that you've interacted through through your organization.
Yes, it's very troubling. Like we need mental health counselors. We need more resources in order to help our us all, even the caregivers. deal with this. There, like I said, there's PTSD involved. There's adjustment anxiety disorders going. Like there's so much. Everyone's on high alert. There's people
Right.
having trouble sleeping. When you're in the hospital for days and you're not sleeping, and the condition that
Yep.
you're in, it's not normal at all, and it becomes the norm, and so we deal with it, and it's like we can't get back to normal. So my daughter, I have her in therapy weekly,
That's good.
which is something that I took the lead on because I'm like she needs to talk about it, and so typically we'll get in there and she'll start talking about, something at school or something else. But I told her and I said, Samara, we're here to talk about anything that you want to talk about. I said, but specifically the things that you don't feel comfortable talking about. Even with me, you can definitely talk to me. And so most of the time I'm not in the room. She's talking to a therapist. I'm like, but you need to be able to express yourself. You need to be able to tell people what you're going through. And I see in the community over and over again that's really something that we struggle with. We try to be strong. We try to be, hey, I got this. And sometimes we don't. And so we
Right.
need the support of our community. We need someone to, and then it becomes a burden, sometimes on the family members financially. I can't be in the hospital with you all the
Right.
time. You know, God has blessed me personally to be, work from home, and I am able to be with her, but like other people can't do that, and
Right.
especially if you have other kids, she's the only child, but I can only sympathize with other and empathize with other families that, it's like, we can't stop because of this is happening to one child and the rest of the family, we still have to pay our bills and things like that. And so it's like, we need help too. We need resources. Of course, we've got like the two FDA approved cures that came out, which everybody was sending me texts and, they were saying, hey, this is, and I said, I know about it. I know about the CRISPR gene editing, technology that they're using. I said, however, it's not for her right now. She
Nope.
has a variant that's not, they're
Oh,
not doing it for her yet. So, and then her age group, they're doing it on 12-year-olds and up. So
right. So
she's not eligible for
she
that
has a
yet.
few years to wait. So,
Right. And so
and
hopefully by that time we'll work out the kinks. I mean, it's a $2 million procedure right now. So there's a whole host of different things. Like I said, we're trying to
oh, that makes my
um,
heart hurt.
$2 million ticket
To
to try to,
try $2
yeah,
million, $2 million to try. To try. I mean, who that's a topic for another time. Again, laughing at the absurdity of it all. And with the mental health, which I've got another guest coming on that we're going to talk about mental health in the Black community of it. So I'm going to frame this as a question, not as an assumption. Do you think that with mental health in the Black community, like it's so difficult to seek it out is because the Black community and people in the Black community are regularly dismissed?
definitely. There's a lack of understanding. There's, usually if we do get to the point where we're like, okay, I know I need to talk to someone. I definitely need to sort my thoughts out, and I need to talk to someone that's unbiased, that won't judge me later, that
Mm-hmm.
won't use it against me later. And so when you get to that point, then you go and you speak to, and you like, I don't have anybody else that can relate, because there's a level of understanding that you can have as a Caucasian person. But then when you have another person that has a similar experience, of course, it's just going to be, like you're talking to someone else that can
Mm-hmm.
can relate. And so I feel like that is a huge issue in this area, at least, and in certain rural areas where we need someone to relate to. So
Right.
the therapy is not an option if I'm going to be spending my money to talk to you, and then you're just going to be like, okay, well, do you want a prescription?
Yep.
What can I
They
write
just
for
throw
you?
drugs at you. They
Be
just
like,
throw
no, I actually want to get help.
antidepressants, anti-anxiety, all that. Yeah.
Yeah, and so in our community, it's very frowned on. In the past, for us to go seek outside, it's like we need to figure it out in our, we need to figure this out. I'm like, well, if this person never figured it out, this person, had a drug overdose in this family, this person is being molested at this point. Like all these things are happening, and people are getting raped. There's all these things happening,
Yeah.
and it's still happening. And how are we supposed to deal with this? Like we need help from other.
Why is it frowned upon? That's something that baffles me. I mean, newsflash, I'm white. Like this is something that I don't know, and I can't understand, like, why it's so frowned upon in the African American community to seek out help. And again, I almost want to, and please correct me, I almost want to attribute it to because you've been dismissed so much that it's like, why bother? Like, we can only take care of ourselves. We can't trust anybody. Is it a lack of trust? Is it a lack of trust outside of your own community?
Definitely, it's 100% lack of trust. If we see the Tuskegee experiments, the just disregard of we go to the doctor. I experienced this myself. I went to go. I was having issues, I believe, to be in my gallbladder because of the area that it was in.
Mm-hmm.
And I was having all these symptoms, and they came out without doing a CT scan, without checking, with the ultrasound yet. Those were forthcoming, but before any of that, they were like, "Well, we can come and take your gallbladder." I was like, hold on." I was let's look at this a little bit further. Let's
Mm-hmm.
figure this out. And then I still have my gallbladder as of today.
Oh, good.
I
I'm
do.
glad you were able to keep your gallbladder.
But that was like within, not even an hour, 2 hours of being in the emergency room, having these symptoms and things. They were like, well, we have someone here that, they can take your gallbladder out tomorrow. We can admit you. We can have it out tomorrow. And I'm like, are you going to do the CT scan first? Or are you going to do this? I didn't have any gallstones. I had no sludge. I had nothing
Yeah.
going on. So I followed up with my doctor, my primary doctor, which, like I said, a lot of people don't even have a primary doctor. The emergency room is the doctor,
Right, right. Especially in a
have,
rural area where we're from.
yeah,
Like part of it is, like the experience that you have, and I'm not saying this to dismiss it, like, because it even happens in urban
and
areas where there
everywhere,
are a
yeah.
lot where there are a lot of resources, but in rural areas, obviously you're not going to get the best care because, like, the medical industry is a business first and foremost, and you're gonna make all that money working in bigger cities, like where you can get a lot of patients, where you can get a lot of turnaround, and like your go to good old boy primary care doctor, that I think of it from Doc Hollywood, like he's like, just give him a can of Coke, he'll be fine. It's just a tummy ache,
Right. We
you
don't
know.
have feelings. We've
No,
been treated as subhuman. So
yeah. And,
it
and
is.
I mean, yeah, especially like in the African American rural community, we live in the South, we're from the South, and I hate that. It unfortunately it is a truth that you're going to be dismissed. Granted, you're going to be dismissed in bigger cities as well. You're going to be
Yeah.
just dismissed. Period.
And
And
that's one thing that we all have in common, which is sad, is is the distrust, is the mistreatment of people of color. And I will say this too, along with the sickle cell, because I am a person of research. I like to find out why and what happened, and where did it go wrong? How can we stop this from happening again? And so I dug back to the sickle cell testing and newborn screening, because it is a part of the newborn screening now. But it appears that 1988 was when they actually enforced it in Florida. And in this area. So they didn't have a maternity ward in Crestview. Most of us, if you're born between 79, 80, between 88
yep.
or whatever, had to go to Milton, to Santa
Oh
Rosa
man.
Medical Hospital.
Yep.
And they didn't do the newborn screening that included sickle cell, even though 75 was when Nixon, mandated it federally, saying that we should all get tested. But each state was left to their
Yeah,
own.
each state, and there are states that move slower than others. There are states that
Right.
want to remain autonomous, but not really getting into the political aspect of it. And of course, like so 1988, and you and I were both born before 1988.
Yes, we were.
We are considered elder millennials now,
Yes,
Allison. So
we are the elders.
so what are some of the resources? So we're gonna move on to another topic with you. I'm gonna keep you on here for another topic because you own an entertainment business.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about that. What are some of the resources for sickle cell that people can reach out to?
Yes, definitely. So, us, We Reign is a community-based organization. We are a 501(c)(3). If you want to learn more about sickle cell or have a conversation with us and find additional resources, you can come to us first because we most likely will be able to get you where you need to go. So our website is www.wereign, and that's REIGNSCC as in sickle cell corporation.com. And you can email us at info@wereignSCC.com and follow us on Facebook at WeReign
Okay,
as
and
well.
on the YouTube link, I will, or on the YouTube description, I will put all the clickable links on there,
I
so that
appreciate it.
people aren't like cramping their hands trying to write it down or type it out on their phones or anything like that. So, all right, so great resources, and so now moving on, we're gonna shift gears. Talking about your entertainment business, Limitless Entertainment. And
Yes,
again,
and travel.
I'm sorry?
We added travel on there too.
Travel.
Because I was like, you know what? If I'm going to be doing touring and we're doing all this other stuff, I was like, I need to be able to book
You need to be able to book. I mean, I traveled for 2 years with a company and basically had to be my own travel agent in certain situations. So I understand that. And of course, the topic here is or put less in the spotlight struggles. And so you had an experience with a local filmmaker, and she was trying to get her movie shown in our local area. And you were talking about how difficult it was and how dismissive some of the people were on that. So can you talk about your experience with that?
Definitely. So there seems to be a common theme that happens in this area and maybe other areas too. Maybe y'all want to comment on your experiences, but it's just a level of professionalism and customer service that is lacking.
Right.
When someone is inquiring about events, I completely understand, the inquiry and the not booking of it. I understand from the other side of it, someone saying, hey, what are your rates? Hey, how much is this? But at the end of the day, your professionalism comes in where you still answer each question. You still acknowledge receipt of of that person, reaching out to inquire about your services or your venue or whatever the case may be. So if someone comes to you and says, "Hey, you own a venue or a movie theater or whatever the case may be, and you're one of three that we're looking at, but we're going to pick based off of our needs." And those needs aren't met, and so you're going to have to go with the one that is that better suits that event, and no have no hard feelings, because what you don't want is for the individual or their following to look at you a certain way because you turned down a future opportunity that you
Mm-hmm.
could have had if you just answered the phone, pick up the phone,
Yep.
responded in a respectful manner.
A lot of times you were ghosted and ignored, pretty much.
Correct, correct. And so, there could be times where they're like, well, I responded to you. You responded too late, too little too late. The decision's
Right.
already been made, and then the language being used is just, not professional. So we always want to try to put our best foot forward, especially when you're dealing in entertainment industry, because you never know who knows who, and you
Right.
want to give the business to your local, the locals. You want to give that business. This is
Right.
like our struggling season, during the wintertime. And
Slow
so
season,
people
yeah.
want, you need the business. So it's like, we're not coming in saying, hey, can I get a discount? Can I get this, that, and other? No, none of that. It was just a straight up, hey, can we come tour the facility? Can we, see what you have to offer? And it was just, disregarded a little bit. So, but the actual event shout out to Zombies and
Yeah.
Elysium Marine was sold
Right.
out. We did have it at the Regal Theater and Mary Esther behind the mall. I mall.
And we won't.
I don't know. I think it's an
the
apartment
the
complex
the
now.
giant empty building that's attached to
There
an
you
apartment
go. There you go.
complex that growing up we went to, and it was magical, but it is no longer. I actually worked there like when it started going on the decline. But I mean, but you ended up at the Regal Theater. Like they were
Yes.
very accommodating, they were very welcoming.
Oh man, they were right.
And you had a packed house.
Yes, we had a packed house. We had the marquee up with the zombies movie. We had the poster up. I mean, couldn't have been better. Oprah had to take a back seat that weekend. I'm shouting out to Carlo Garcia
Yeah.
because he's like, Oprah, take a back seat
All
because
right.
Color Purple came out the following week.
That's
So
right, it
and she
did.
had a so
That's
we had a purple
right.
carpet premiere because the Alicia Marie, her company is Purple Hair
Hmm.
Production. So we had a purple carpet premiere.
Oh, that's nice. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was
And
cool.
you're looking to showcase the movie elsewhere, correct?
Correct. Yes. So I'll let Alicia do all the announcing of everything that we're doing. But yeah, we're looking to do independent tour. There's a whole bunch of options out there on the table, and so we're going to look at the best one and make the best decision. But it will be shown across the nation.
Okay,
So
so without spoilers, give me like the IMDb like synopsis of Zombies.
um, ooh, that's a good one. Bee community. There's about zombie bees, and I don't understand
Zombie
why it
bees.
wasn't I don't understand why it wasn't a thing before now, but yeah, zombie bees basically overtake a city, and
Wow.
yeah,
Okay. So kind of like Jerry Seinfeld's B movie mixed with The Walking Dead. So,
somewhat yes.
something like that.
There's
Um,
elements of all of those things. It's like a cheesy B movie, and it does what it's supposed to. It's definitely entertaining, and the special effects are awesome. And the entire film was shot on the Emerald Coast,
that's
so
great.
the cast, the crew, they were all there was people represented from all areas of this of of
Yeah.
Florida. So
So
we're
so
happy.
when you're talking about like corny B movie, you think Sharknado or like better quality than Sharknado. Granted, Sharknado is a very low bar to set, but
But that was what she was going for. It's her first film, and
mhm,
it was actually based on real events. As far as like there are mites that do take, I guess they take effect or they house
yeah,
themselves like a
cordyceps, yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
And
they do it
so
with
they take over
ants,
the
yeah.
bees, yeah, and so now they don't die. So it's
So
like a zombie bee.
so not Walking Dead, more B movie meets The Last of Us.
There you go.
There you go. So all right,
I can't wait for you to see it. I can't wait for you to see it.
I really do want to see it. I regret not being in town when the premiere was going on. Um, so great thing about a podcast is I can make this however long I want. So I wanted to give you an opportunity if there was anything else that you wanted to talk about before we wrap up.
Yeah, so like with movies, that was a excellent way for me to challenge myself to go into a new industry, so to speak. Entertainment is entertainment. It's all over the place. Our history stemmed back from music, and music videos and touring concerts and things like that, showcases. So it was very interesting to be on the movie and the film side of things. I myself, I do I have done stage plays in the past, and so I have my little acting. I have an actor hat that's back there
Yeah,
somewhere.
and
So
you're I believe you're also a pretty damn good singer.
I love my karaoke. I love my karaoke. You heard me.
Oh no! Don't be humble about this. How we met was the Emerald Coast Sing Off back in the ancient early 20 teens. Back when I was a radio DJ and you were a contestant,
Yes.
and I was wowed by your voice. I really was.
Yeah, I
Do
have
you still
stage fright
sing?
now.
No. Oh,
I don't
no.
know. I think
Do I have to give you
2020, I think made it worse because like not being in front of people. When I got back out there, I'm like I freak out now.
No. I went to your seminar talking about public speaking. Do I need to give you another coaching lesson? Like, is this? Oh my goodness, Allison. No, there you. You can't have stage fright. For one, I mean, you're talking to me like right now, and like you're gonna be heard by tens of people on my podcast.
No, it might be tens of thousands. We're gonna see. See.
But all right,
With the
well, Allison,
controversial stuff, we're gonna get more views by that.
I mean, for one, like if people think sickle cell anemia is controversial, then like I have no phrase for that. I don't know. I was trying to come up with something clever and I couldn't, but you know, but everything that we talked about is very important and it needs to be continuously discussed. So
Thank
Allison,
you.
thank
Yeah.
you for being a part of this. I really do appreciate it. We're gonna move on to my next guest, who is Jalen Jones. We're gonna be talking to him as soon as I get off of Zoom with Allison. So Allison Morris, thank you so much for being a part of this podcast, and I hope to do something with you very soon down the road.
We will. We'll create an opportunity for that. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
It's your dose of Johnny C, powered by Ace 50 Media, back talking to an old friend, Jalen Jones. I've known him since he was 11, and makes me sound like an old fart. Great guy. I was very proud to walk with you after George Floyd was murdered. So you brought about a lot of positive change in that march, and this was back in 2020, talking about true unity, really bringing people together. You hugged it out with our hometown police chief. Just kind of bringing people together. And I loved that. And so I really did want you to be a part of this because you really do have just a great way of bringing people together. You really do. So I'm glad that you're able to come on and come out of your busy schedule with a newborn, and being a dad and working and everything. So thanks for being a part of this, Jalen. I really do appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. I really appreciate being here, man. Really like what you do.
No, I'm just running my mouth. That's all I'm doing. But so the topic of this is, it is hardships in the Black community that aren't talked about as much. There is no hardship in the Black community that is talked about enough. But we talk about redlining. We talk about disproportionate poverty. We talk about disproportionate incarceration. All of it, and I just talked about sickle cell with Allison. But I wanted to talk to you because you posted a TikTok that really resonated with me, talking about mental health. And when I talked to Allison before, she was talking about the reticence of people in the Black community not seeking out mental health, and because of distrust, because of dismissal, because of all of it. And I know that and when you talked about in your TikTok, you struggled with becoming a part of it. And I know that, your spirituality has kind of helped bring you to that conclusion. So what was hard for you about it to begin with? And what have you taken away from it so far?
Gotcha. Yeah, man. When it comes as far as mental health, it really is downplayed in the Black community and in the Black home. And I think it's kind of like you said, it's built off of distrust. It's built off of all the things that we been through and all the struggles. One one thing that really got me thinking about it was Dave Chappelle, one of my favorite comedians. He made a joke, and he was just saying, as a Black man, like we don't have the luxury to really think about how we feel. And one that he kind of punchline the joke with, I did something that Black men don't often get time to do. I thought about how I felt, and I was like, wow, like we really don't, because it seems like there's a constant like fighting and pulling and trying to make it through. And I don't have time to show weakness. I don't have time to show my emotion. And I think that's kind of where it's rooted at. And it goes way, way back to when we were brought over and all the systematic oppression and the different things we dealt with. It's kind of like you got to be tough to make it. So we can't have any like slip up. We can't even have any weaknesses because those weaknesses are multiplied times 1,000. So you got to walk around like you're the man, like you got it all together. On top of that, not just being black, but also being a man, which we both can
Right.
resonate, like the weight that you got to carry and the responsibility and the people that need you. It's like, I don't have time to, and even now I'm working through it because I got stuff going on in my life, and it's like, I don't have time to sit here and think, how do I feel? What do I think about what happened to me? What do I think about what happened to me 10 years ago that was traumatic and affects the way I look at people and how I feel and my anxiety and even the way I block out anxiety. Like I don't have time to do that because I'm trying to get somewhere. I'm trying to make it happen for my family. Um, and being black just adds another weight to that because a black man in America, of course, we have different struggles when it comes to employment and it comes to getting where we want to be and being successful and staying there. And on top of that, as a father, there's so many different battles. And I guess for me going through that, for me, the biggest shift that made me stop and say, all right, I got to do something different is the little one I got sitting right here. This one, and I also got a little boy who's 3 now. But of course, I had Christ and stuff like that. But Christ isn't always um, it helps, but it's not always. There's different routes and different tools that you can use. You know what I'm saying, and different motivations. And Christ kind of helped me with it. But from a young age, high school age, I knew like I want to be a good father. Like, and I've seen like no shade of disrespect, but I've seen where and felt through fatherhood how those kind of traumatic events and the holding back of emotions and that wall and that stiffness that comes from not acknowledging where you at, how it affects like your kids, how it affects the people around you, how it affects you as a leader, as a man, how it affects your peace, your house, your home. Even if you don't say nothing, just your presence that's like that can affect the home. So I said, okay, I don't want to be like that. I want to be better. I want to be able to connect with my kids. I want to be able to connect with my wife, with my family. I don't want to be a brick wall. And I think that's where it kind of started. But man, and I'm sure you know this too, it's like it's such a long process that it doesn't even feel like there's a destination. It's just like, as you go through life, you try to process what's happened, more stuff happening, and you just like realize, okay, wow, this happened to me. It drew up this emotion, and it's drawn up this emotion because something happened to me 10 years ago.
Right.
So yeah, I guess for me, and what was the second question that you asked along with that?
What I I was just sitting back listening. I don't even remember the other question. I think it was I think you answered it. It is what made you go like that. That's what it was why it was and what made you want to seek that out. And I think and you answered it. I mean, being a father really, that obviously I'm not a father. Like I don't hold that mantle. But being present for the people you care about, being, when, of course, I've been in therapy, I actually had a bad day earlier today, like we all have our bad days. And to quote the Killing Joke from Batman, all it takes is one bad day. And so, but it was like it is a process, and it's a long process. But the fact that you need to be present, my therapist said, is like, I know that you feel like you're punishing yourself for not doing enough, or for feeling guilty for feeling this way, and you're punishing yourself. But the outward reaction of it hurts everyone else around you. And, and so like any trauma that you went through that you haven't processed, like you could feel angry about something that happened 10 years ago. It can trigger something that, affects you to this day. Like that's what happened with me today. But, my wife was sitting there witnessing it. And she's like, "Well, you stop." Like she was trying to make me feel better, but I just wasn't taking it. But with you, like you have two little ones. You yourself are breaking generational trauma. And so I guess my next question for you is, what would you say to other, because I know it's especially hard for black, or I shouldn't say I know, like from what you've said, it's especially hard for black men. What would you say to those men to encourage them to seek out the kind of help that you sought out as a leader?
Yeah, I guess for me, I would say to them, and I think I honestly say this to a lot of kids because I work in the schools and middle schools, and we have real talks while I'm in there. And the biggest thing I guess I tell them is to be aware of yourself because we're really not. Like we get caught up in the world and things that's going on, and we're just not aware of ourselves. And then what happens is you get older and mature, and then you become aware, but you got so much baggage that's already piled up because you wasn't aware. And and most time when that stuff starts piling up at a young age, um, people don't take you seriously.
No.
So like you have to learn. So it's already a fight to say like I'm in middle school, I'm dealing with something serious. Like this is serious. And sometimes you go tell your mom and dad, oh, you're not dealing with nothing. You're not paying bills. You're not.
Right.
It's hard when the small things aren't being validated. So firstly, I want to say to parents and adults, like validate the small things when it comes to kids because we always focus on the what, but it's not the what, it's the why, it's the how. So yeah, you're having like with my son right now, like, and I shouts out to my son, his mom. She does a very good job with his emotions because he could be frustrated about something very little, but we don't diminish those emotions. We say, hey, you having big feelings? Like, why are you
Mm-hmm.
having, oh, it's okay. Like, it's okay to feel that way, but this is how you need to express it. Instead of saying, well, you ain't dealing with nothing. So we're teaching them, like, even through the small moments and small things, like, your emotions matter and they're valid. And I guess I would say that to the kids is just find somebody around you who validates your feelings. They don't allow your feelings or somebody don't allow somebody who's going to allow your feelings to run wild because your feelings are not the truth always. But find somebody who validates your feelings. Find somebody you can talk to and be open with 100% because that makes the biggest difference. Um, Even in the Bible says that we overcome by the blood of the Lamb, which is Jesus, and the word of our testimony. So even as we talk, we're overcoming things. And me personally, as a young man, I never understood the power of talking to somebody. So like I held things in for a super long time, and then it took me getting to college and sitting in my dorm room by myself with the lights off, just sitting there, and I'm like, what's wrong with me? Like I'm in college, I'm with all these people. You're supposed to be having a great time, and I'm just sitting there like in the dark, like this is not it. And I ended up leaving college, and I met my mom and my stepdad like halfway back to New York because that's where they were staying at the time, and I was in Chicago. And we stopped at a rest area and talked. And while we was at that rest area, like I just spewed out everything I ever did, everything I dealt with, everything. I just like blah blah. This is me. This is me. This is me. And after that, it was
Big weight off your
like
shoulders.
big weight off my shoulders. And it was validated. Like they didn't just push it aside. Like they really heard me and felt me, and I felt heard and seen. I'm like, okay, like my emotions matter. I do matter. And so it's definitely tough, especially if you're especially as a young kid. But I would just like encourage y'all to like feel your emotions, be aware of yourself, find people you can talk to, and understand that this stuff is real and it builds on itself. So you have to learn to not try to be tough,
Right.
not try to be cool, because a lot of us trying to be cool, act like nothing's
Mm-hmm.
going on. Um, just really be honest. Like I'm not doing okay. I'm
Yeah.
struggling with this. I've got some hard stuff going on, and nobody's listening. But I know it's real. If nobody else gonna listen to you. Talk to God. My therapist tells me to get a plant and talk to a plant because a plant
Talk
can't
to a plant.
talk.
Okay. Okay.
This is way, to get
I
it
mean, I
out
talk
and
to my dogs, so I mean, same thing. So
perfect. And they're a little better than a plant because they can like run up and be
yeah, they
happy
can
and
they can cuddle on you and love on you. So um, now what about like there's a secondary factor here, and that's the distrust. What would you say would be a big step toward overcoming that distrust that kind of keeps people from seeking out help?
That's a it's definitely a tough one. Um,
What was your experience? What do you think? I mean, you talk about your spirituality, like you have your faith in God. So I can imagine for you that that probably helped. But there is so much distrust. What we'll circle back to that because because we talked about an experience, during our march or during your march, and it was the conversation that you're eventually going to have with both of your kids. It's the conversation of how to interact with law enforcement when you get pulled over or when you have to interact with law enforcement. And you yourself had an experience that kind of confirmed that fear and that justification for having that talk. And so, if you're comfortable with it, I'd like for you to talk about that experience if you can. And then I can imagine that's a traumatic experience for you. That's probably something that you've had to go through in therapy. But, and I can imagine that, and correct me if I'm wrong, that kind of compounded your distrust a little bit. And so, if you don't mind, can you talk about it and kind of something that you worked on to kind of overcome the distrust from that moment?
yeah, man. And you know what the crazy thing is it's a traumatic moment, especially when I explain it, but the feelings and emotions I feel towards it aren't as dramatic as it sounds. It's a
Right.
crazy, and it should be, you know what I'm saying? But it's kind of when you've grown up with this preconceived notion of it's going to be this way, when crazy stuff happens, it's almost like, well, I expected it. And I think that probably adds to some of the numbness and some of the distrust. Is like, I expect, because that's not even that. I don't even believe that was my first run in with cops in like ways that just didn't feel right. Like I remember, I think before that, real quick, there was a time that me and one of my homeboys, black guys, we were talking. We had two white girls we were dating, and their car had broke down, and it was at nighttime. So we pulled up, and we was trying to jump it, but it wouldn't jump. So we was like, hey, I guess we got to call the cops. Well, that's what they said. Our first thought is not that. We're never calling the cops at night
Right.
because,
Right.
and but they did. The cop pulled up. We're just standing here like, yeah, man, we're trying to figure it out. And instead of looking at the car, the cop like flashes the light on me and him. He's like, hey, can y'all put your hands on the hood and let me frisk y'all or like pat y'all
Oh
down?
my God.
I was like, and I was laughing because I'm thinking he's joking. I'm like, oh man, you want me to do this? He's like, no, like I'm dead serious. I'm like, oh wow. So I'm like, you know what? Don't worry about it. Like we're about to go. So it's just little moments like that that build up to it. But in Chicago, that was probably the most intense experience because I was working at a hotel and I was coming in very early in the morning to work at the hotel. Me and two of my football buddies worked there. And I was coming in by myself. It was cold in Chicago, so I had my hoodie on. And I'm walking in the door. When I walk in, it's like 4 or 5. Well, this police cars are in the front, so I'm like, what's going on? I don't even know. So I walk in. There's probably like two or three policemen on the inside, and they're kind of like surrounding me as I walk in the door. I notice as I'm walking in, like two of them walk outside to kind of come come from the rear, come behind me. And I walk in, lady got a hand on the gun and like, hey, what you doing here? And I'm like, yo, like I work here. And they just like looking at me as if like I'm lying or I have a reason why. I'm like, no, I'm working here. And it was just like, get out of here. And it was like it was a very quick moment, but it was just like wow, like
It was
that.
scary.
It's scary. It's scary because, and I'm a black man. Like this happens. Like black men get
Yes.
shot for nothing, and it's like wow. Like I'm this. I was this close, hand on the gun, looking at me when I got my hoodie on, just like Trayvon or was it, no Ahmaud Arbery, I think he had, or
Ahmaud
Trayvon.
Arbery, yeah.
He was jogging, but
Well, Trayvon Martin too. He had the red hoodie on.
he had the hoodie on. And just like it builds this trust and of the outside world, which that
Yeah.
could. Now that I'm glad that you're actually mentioning it because I never put the two together. That those moments of distrust doesn't just when you have distrust, it doesn't just stay in that one place. Like it
Right.
spreads. It's like this happened on the outside. It's like, oh, the outside's scary. Like I can't be exposed to the outside because anything can happen to me. They don't really care about me anyway. You know what I'm saying? In that moment, it just one of many moments that, you know, kind of laid that groundwork. And now I'm in a place now where it's an everyday thing. If I see a cop, I'm nervous. And I shouldn't be nervous. I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm
Right.
scared. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm driving and I see a police car, I'm slowing down under the speed limit. Like I don't want
Mm-hmm.
any kind of interactions. Like it's not a safe feeling. And it's the same feeling like you said, I'm gonna have to go to my son and be like, hey, you gotta know about this. I gotta talk to my daughter. Hey, you gotta know about this. Like it's definitely a different feel. Definitely.
Yeah. And so what did you do to process that distrust from that experience, or have you?
I think for me, I don't think I actually really like sat down and thought about that one experience. And I think there's still like a distrust and a fear that's there. But kind of like I said earlier, that fear, that feeling, um, to me is not it's I ain't gonna say it's not truth because it definitely is and it's definitely valid, but it's not the whole truth, I guess.
Right.
Like when I'm doing stuff like what I did in the Funiac and different things that I've done, it's like, okay, like, yeah, I know this fear is there. I understand it's here, but I also understand everybody's not like that. I
Right.
also understand that this is happening because there is a gap. And when
Right.
you're not connected to the community, when you're not connected to the black community, working in different communities, you don't have an understanding of them. And so they become less human less
Right.
and when they're less human, you treat them as such. So that's why when you go into these areas and you don't understand them, and it's like, oh, you must be a threat because I don't understand you.
Right.
What I did was I'm a deep thinker. I like to get to the root, and I'm like, once we get to the root, let's work from that and go up. So it needs to be connection and relationship built. So I'm like, I got to put that aside and put that distrust aside and like step into like create some kind of connection. And that's what I would have stayed in the Funiac longer. I had to move for family reasons, but
Right.
that was my next step. Was like, how can we bridge this gap between law enforcement and the people? You know, because there's
Right.
a big distrust right there,
Yeah.
and it's
And
yeah,
especially then, and before anybody gets into the comment section, like we're not doing anti law enforcement or anything like that. Like you and I both in our hometown have a great relationship with you and our chief of police where we lived. I mean, they were very supportive of what we were doing. They made sure that we were taken care of. Um, and like you sir brought all of that together. You and your friends, and then afterwards, you hired me for a community event, which like we both grew up in Defuniac, and where I went in this park, I had no idea this park existed because I was never in that part of town, and I mean and it was a great community event. It was very like a lot of togetherness, like the things that you're talking about and you're preaching about. Like I need to post a link to the video that we did about that, because it really was really a good way to bridge those gaps, to I guess alleviate that distrust, because you created an understanding between both communities in Defuniac. And of course in Defuniac, where we grew up is is actually a higher per capita African American population than the rest of the county. Where we did, so, like I mean, where I went to school, like I was around, but I still didn't know. And that's part of the reason, like I'm trying not to virtue signal or anything like that, but that's why I want to do it, because like for one, I believe in you and like in what you did, and I really wanted to hear it from you, because you have made so many strides. And then when I saw that TikTok of you kind of exposing that raw nerve, talking about your own mental health and everything like that, it's like, well, here's this community leader, and even he struggles, like because that day you had all, like, you gave this air of having all the answers. You really did. And like I would say fake it till you make it, but you weren't faking it. You weren't faking it because you believed in everything that you talked about. So, but how would those two correlate? Like your mental health journey and your advocacy journey. How do you think that those kind of like intertwined, do you think?
That's a good point. I think, and I'm even further along in my journey now, but I think how those two would kind of correlate is for me to do something like that. I had to really be definitely had to be aware of myself and had to be open because that was a very vulnerable thing to do. I don't even think people understand how vulnerable that thing made me. Um, because first off, when you're doing something like that in a town such as Phoenix Springs, there's a lot of people who don't like it.
Nope.
So
You're absolutely right. And actually there was resistance that day. I remember.
yeah, and it was, and I'm telling, leading up to it, like it was so much weight on me. Like I made it look like I had the answers. I was cool, but like it was tough. I had to,
You
but
really
I had,
did. You really did.
but I had to definitely, definitely be able to handle my emotions and be able to stand on my two feet and just be open and honest because um, even when it came to like some black people, some black leaders, I didn't have support from them. And I was doing what I was doing. I had to stand on my own. I had people who were completely on the other side who were attacking my character, who I was, bringing up past situations and things like that, and saying very nasty things. I had people putting letters in the mail talking about me and like as if I sent the mail out, or no, they were sending mail out like trying to talk junk about me and make me seem like this kind of person. And it was a bunch of crazy stuff. But there was even times where, at the time, the mother of my son, she was staying with me. We were living together. We were engaged. And there were times I would have to leave work and go home to make sure she was safe because I'm watching everything. I'm like, somebody follow me? Like that looked weird. Like it was very, very vulnerable and it was so much weight. And I don't think at that time, if I wasn't where I was as far as like praying more and being more open. And at that time, I was even a part of a men's group that was in Destin. It was an all white men's group, believe it or not. And I think I was just about to join that group. And in that group, I even started opening up more and more and making those connections. And um, but that kind of helped me get through those tough moments because it was not easy and it'd have been easy to snap back. It'd have been easy just to go off. But I had to sit there and I had to take it. And that takes a lot of understanding of yourself to do that. It definitely was tough.
Uh, so I mean, your big thing, the ongoing theme with what you've been talking about is self awareness.
Yeah.
Just being aware of yourself, your own flaws, your own personality quirks, your own mentality, your own experiences. Um, and again, what you did that day, like I was in awe, dude. I mean, I was your substitute teacher. That's how we met. And for one, like when you're talking about dismiss, I hope I didn't do that for you, like being dismissive of you, like like it was like crazy middle schooler, like across the board, like but I saw that and I was in awe. You're 13 years younger than me. I'm 40 years old, and you have so much more maturity than I do, and so much more motivation than I do, and so many more resources just to bring people together. And seriously, I'm you need no validation from me. I'm so proud of the man that you've become. Um,
And I'll say this too, because you mentioned that and it made me think. But and that's another thing. Like I give all credit to God because he set
right.
this stuff up. One thing that God did is like, and I noticed it when I was in middle school and all of that is like I had the ability to bridge gaps just in my friend group, just having fun. White people, black people,
Yep.
different styles, different kind of groups. I'm like, wow, I have a talent to do this. There's a reason. And So when I stepped into the area when I was doing the protest, it was like, God, like I've already been prepared to do that, to bring all these different groups, white, black people, people young, old. Like I have the respect and the reach to reach the older people. I have the style and the wherewithal to reach the younger people. Like I had that thing, and it's something that God just gave me, and it was beautiful to see. There's I think that's one of the most beautiful displays of what he put in me was in that moment when all those people came together in solidarity and was like just unified. Everybody walking together, talking, hugging, crying. Like I was like, wow, God, like this
Yeah.
is amazing. And it's like it's been a blessing, and I still do it to this day. I still, when I'm in the schools or at my job and different, and I'm bringing all these people together, and I'm able to move between the different groups. And when I was in the Funiac, and I had my homeboys, and then I also had a men's group that I was part of that was like all white, and I was able to be in both environments and
Yeah.
stuff. It's it's something.
It really is. And I wish there were more people like you here where I live. And maybe there are and I haven't met them yet. But from what I've seen, like, kind of wish you weren't in Texas right now, because we could really use like your kind of energy to bring people together, because I think, it's been almost 4 years now. It's hard to believe COVID was 4 years ago, and George Floyd was almost 4 years ago. But, I think we've kind of forgotten it a little bit. And of course, like, a lot's happened for you since then, so, like, in your hand right now, that she is your responsibility right now.
Yeah.
And she is your greatest responsibility. But I think you coming on here and talking about it, to my tens of listeners. So,
You
but
got
you
more
coming
than
on
that.
here, I'm sorry.
I said you got more than that for sure. I see you on TikTok.
Well, this is on YouTube. I'm just building this up on YouTube, this podcast, and maybe on SoundCloud. I don't know. Like, I just started doing this. But like the fact that you were able to make yourself vulnerable like that, I think that in and of itself, breaks that generational trauma. And, I think there needs to be more men like you in all of our respective communities to kind of bring them together and to talk about the things that, maybe don't get the light shed on them as much as they should. And I think, like, talking about the distrust, I think the fact that you were able to make yourself vulnerable to kind of like put yourself out there, and granted, at great personal, physical, like, risk to yourself to do that, not only to yourself, but like with your family. And like the fact that they were able to support you in that was, and what was great about that day, like there was some pushback, but there was no violence from it. There was nothing violent. You talked about, like, you saw, like, in the news and in the media, like, all of these violent protests and everything like that. But, and in the deep South, where you would think it would happen, it didn't. To see you and Chief Hurley, like, hugging it out the way that you did, the support that Definiak Springs Police provided during that protest, and and I would venture to say it was it was an amazing mixture of white and black coming together during that march. And I think part of it is because, like, growing up in Definiak, there is a bigger black population, so like we would like there you would get more support, because like, you would tell us your experiences. You would like, we would become friends, like as a nerdy kid in Walton High School, you would think that I got beat up by the jocks, but they loved me because I made them look good on camera. But you again, I'm glad that you were able to come on through your busy schedule with a newborn. You got a 3-year-old. You got you're working. You're in Texas. So thank you, Jalen, so much. Before we wrap up, the beauty of a podcast, there's no time limit on this. So was there anything else that you wanted to talk about while you were on here before we wrap up?
Yeah, man. I guess the thing I would like to say is everybody, when it comes to this kind of battle and this kind of role, everybody has their spaces and their roles in this battle when it comes to it. And it doesn't always look like the marches that we do or the events that we do. Like I know young black men that I grew up with now who are somewhere in the area who are in schools and they're working and they're shedding light in the schools. I know some people in the church shedding light in the church. I know some people who are out in the community that does different little things like that. And though it doesn't look the same, like the work is all super important. One thing for me when I did the marches and the rallies and the events, the one thing that though it was good, the one thing that I was disappointed, I would say disappointed with what I wanted more of was that kind of stuff, the day to day stuff, because that's really the meat and bones that's going to change things. Is when like day to day we have something consistent. I wanted to set up something consistent, something that's there for the kids, something that was there for the grown men, for the families, all of that to just help build a stronger community. I wanted to set up an event where we brought the law enforcement and the black community together into the same space for something chill and just relax so we could
Mm-hmm.
get to each other. I wanted to do all those things, but I didn't have a chance to. But I just really want to shine a light because there's a bunch of little battles that needs to be fought before we even. Well, not I want to say, well, it's a bunch of small battles that need to be fought day to day to get where we want to get to.
Right.
The youth is like the conduit for that. Like the youth, they are ready to run. The older people, the older crowd, we have like the wisdom, we understand things, but the youth is who we need to pour into. So I think it's time that I think the small battles are good, but I'm just like you said, I hope there is somebody who will say, okay, we've been fighting these small battles. Let's every once in a while bring it all together. Let's have some big showing. So there's something going on. Let's reach out. Let's have a big community day. Let's go to a place most people wouldn't go to. Like it was your first time being to Van Street. It was a lot of people's
Yeah.
first time being
Yeah.
out there. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? And part that I used to pass by growing up. We used to play ball there, all of that. Like take it to the different places and different spaces and bring people together. And I don't know, like it's always been on my heart to come back to the Funiac and do work there and serve that community. And who knows, like maybe God will lead me back there one day.
Right.
But if not, I'm praying something because there's still kids there that's still going through experiences and in high school, middle school, elementary school, like they're
Mm-hmm.
going through experience similar. You know what I'm saying? And it it matters and they matter. And I wanted, and that's one reason why I did the big showings because I wanted them to know, like, hey, middle school, elementary school, high school, grown folks, like, in a small town of the Puniat, like, this matters. Like, you matter. You're very important. So, yeah, shout out to everybody fighting those little battles, and I pray that, some things start to come to the community and things start to grow and things happen. It doesn't have to be specifically like focus on the black community or in that kind of sense of unity. It could just be positive. We need
Right.
something positive for students. We need something positive for just everybody to do. You know what I'm saying? So just big shout out to them. And I really appreciate you having me on. And
Oh yeah.
from the moment when we did all the walks and all that and you came into the picture, like I was super grateful. I don't even think I expressed how grateful I was when you did show up. And like you say, it's crazy because you were my substitute teacher and I
Right.
didn't expect, Miss Alexander to show up with the camera, like, hey man, I'm with you. With the DJ booth, like, hey man, like I'm with you, like that means that meant a whole lot to me, like more than I can express. And even now, as I literally sit there and I wait for your TikToks to pop up, and I just watch you just talk through your story. And I know you probably think you're just talking, but man, when I said it helps me, like it helps me. Just there's another man going through exactly what I'm dealing with in some form of fashion, and he made it through it. He's pushing through it. He's talking about the real stuff. Like you are an inspiration to a lot of people, and I appreciate what you do. And anything you ever ask me to do, I'll definitely be there to rock with you. And if I'm doing anything, I'll definitely reach out to you. But
Absolutely. Jalen, that means a lot. It really does. Thank you so much, my friend. Well, thanks for being a part of this. I really do appreciate it. I'm gonna go like get some tissues now because that was really moving. So I know you got to go. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Jalen. This has been a Dose of Johnny C podcast, powered by Ace 50 Media. I want to thank Allison Morris for being a part of this podcast. Jalen Jones, thank you so much for being a part of this, making yourself vulnerable, and we will see you next time.